So anyway, we'll get this one going with another hand here that I played in a 9-handed game in which a middle position player open raised, the hijack called, the cutoff 3-bet, in which she hasn't played much Omaha in her lifetime and so far seems to be 3-betting a decent amount of hands compared to what I would expect to be a normal 3-betting standard. She hasn't really cold called ever too, so still taking the limit hold'em game into her 08. So anyway, then I had ace-10, 8-2 double suited, and I called from the button. Small blind called, the big blind called, middle position 4-bet, and we all called, which is middle position here. I'm putting them on a fairly strong hand, and could be any kind of ace-2 double suited, or even could be like ace-ace king-queen, or some kind of king-queen, king-queen jack-10 even could be possibly in his range. But I discount that kind of hand a little bit more. And so anyway, we get to the flop of 9-7-2 rainbow, in which the 4-better bet, hijack called, cutoff called, I called, and the blinds folded. So now on the turn at least I'll know that if middle position bets again that I won't be getting check raised if there's no other action. So anyway, like in this hand I flopped a pair of 2s and a 10-8 open-ended straight draw. And so then we get to the turn here of 8, so now I've got 8s and 2s, and it did put a club flusher out here in which middle position bet, hijack called, cutoff called. I decided to raise, which we'll talk about that a little more later. And all three of these guys called. One of the reasons I raised was because basically concluded hijack and cutoff, they can't really have too strong of a hand, because if they did they would have raised on the flop or the turn, and I think it's fairly unlikely that mid position could have a jack 10 unless he happened to have some kind of one of those king queen jack 10 type hands I described. So one of the reasons I raised was thinking, oh, it's like almost impossible for me to get 3-bet here even if I am behind. So that was kind of a little bit of limit hold'em logic coming into play, which, as I said, we'll get to that a little later. So then the river came a 6, giving me a straight, and it checked to me and I bet. MP folded, the hijack called, and the cutoff folded, so now we've got a total of a 24 big bet pot here, in which the hijack had ace-jack 5-4 for an ace-4 low and a 8 high straight, and I had the 10 high straight for a chop pot, which later on I got to ask the pre-flop 4-better what he had, and he had ace-queen 9-2 double suited, in which 2 of those were clubs, so he flopped 2 pair on me because then the flop was 9-7-2, and he turned a club flush draw too. I don't actually know though if he would have folded the river if it was a blank and didn't improve his hand at all, and if I still bet. But yeah, we'll talk about that a little more. So kind of like looking, first counting the outs, like if I'm behind on the turn I have anywhere from 8 to 12 outs depending on how good my board pair full-up cards are, which in this hand pairing the 8 would have been good, I assume anyway, unless some of these other people did fold other 2 pair hands that would have crushed me in some kind of way. Oops, here I am. I guess so then starting to talk a little more about that turn raise. There weren't really any safe cards for me on the river. Pretty much a 3 or 4 were the only cards that I could really call safe in on that hand. Because even like say it comes a queen or a jack, or I guess jack gives me a straight, but like a queen or a king or something like that, it could very well give somebody queens up or kings up, or if they happen to have like pocket kings or whatever. But they're basically, other than like making my straight or making a full house, there aren't that many safe cards that can come on the river. So that's just kind of one thing to look at before we even get to what my primary mistake on this hand was. Just like thinking about the fact there aren't going to be safe cards, and when one of those cards that can look a little scary comes, am I betting it as a bluff? Am I betting it for value? But there is a chance that betting most rivers may may get a better 2-pair to fold if that's all they have. The problem is with that, though, that they may often have a better 2-pair along with some type of low and decide to call and hope that they get something out of it. So I'm really kind of, if I'm betting the river as a bluff, I'm really basically praying that they have like nines or like 8s and 7s or something like that, or just some kind of hand where they talk themselves into thinking, well, if you raise a turn, he has to have Jack 10. Because, yeah, I do realize when I raise a turn, it should look like I have Jack 10 there a large chunk of the time.